I am Grady Colline in the CapeCod.com News Center. Welcome to Sunday Journal. I'm joined today by a special guest, a candidate who is running for Cape and Islands State Senate, Joe Van Ness. You're running as independent. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. It is a pleasure to have you on video with us today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about today that we're trying to pack into just a short while, unfortunately. But I wanted to open up with just like so you're running as independent. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about your experiences and kind of what some of your previous introductions into politics for listeners who might not be aware?
Sure. Well, I served on the West Tisbury Board of Health in Martha's Vineyard. I was there from 2016 to 2019. I did not choose to run again. In hindsight, I kind of wish I had. I would have been able to do some things on the Board of Health to fight back against the pandemic, as I like to call it, in a way that I think would have affected a lot of Islanders, who I like to call the quiet majority of the silent majority of people who were fed up with the way the banks made a huge power grab and printed trillions of dollars, and everyone got a little stipend of like $1,200. But we were really robbed during that at a time that we were encouraged to stay indoors. And it's interesting, the Board of Health has quite a bit of power when it comes to, and it's given power on purpose to prevent outbreaks of public health. But in this situation, any group that's given a lot of power can't abuse it. And I don't think it was being abused, but like I said, there's a silent majority of, or growing majority of people, and
Mhm.
everyone has their opinion, but who who are starting to notice that politics is a business, and it's controlled by the same people who have chemical companies that put chemicals in the food, and they're the same people, the same companies that sell us the medication that's required because our food's being poisoned, and they're the same companies that sell weapons of war that they charge us. All our taxes go to paying for weapons of war that goes to destabilizing populations overseas, which then forces these populations to come back to our country because, I mean, if your home's destroyed, where else you go? Like, America is the obvious choice. We have one of the world's greatest economies. So
Oh
so
yeah.
anyone who can will come here. And then the same powers that be, rather than admit that they're the problem, start putting the locals who are being charged an arm and leg and taxes. And we have a housing crisis on Cape Cod, but instead of addressing the issue behind it, we're working with the the banks, I would say, which are um, creating an instability with fluctuating real estate prices, which are going way up because of the trillions of dollars that were printed during the pandemic. And instead of us talking about this, we're being given a different population to focus on. So it's like, don't focus on the cause of this problem. Look at those damn immigrants that are coming up, and like we're gonna. So they're agitating two ant hills, and we're supposed to fight amongst ourselves while we don't give any thought to the actual cause of these problems. And this might sound like a station above state senate. Like, why is a guy running for state senate talking about global issues? But it's not, because if we don't have housing in Cape Cod, if we don't have land, like, what are we even fighting for overseas? Like, we don't even have the right to own an acre of land. There was conversation, I want to say 100 years ago, 40 acres and a mule. That never came to fruition. But like, can I get an acre that like the bank doesn't take, that doesn't charge a death tax of 40% because you want to like give it to your kids when you die, land that you already paid for, that the town taxed every year that you owned it. And these taxes aren't a joke. I mean, Cape Cod, it's the most uh I would say the Cape and Islands, it's a waterside district. This is a valuable piece of real estate, and we're paying to live here, but we don't really own the land that in words we're supposed to own, right? So I'm coming at the housing crisis in a different way than the Democrat and Republican candidates are. And I think a lot of that is because of the funding, where the funding of Democrats and Republicans is coming from. They're both being funded by the same corporations. And there's
Mhm.
shell companies. One might be funded by one airlines, another might be funded by, a train company or separate airlines. But at the end of the day, there's a pyramid of you know, Vanguard and BlackRock owns all these guys.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, we definitely are like seeing huge crunches when it comes to the housing affordability at this point. We have there's been a lot of talk about like not only has there been less real estate to buy, but also like concerns about like the missing middle, where it's like firefighters, teachers who like they don't qualify for low income subsidies, but they don't make enough money to be able to afford like the median sale price of a home on
Yeah.
like Nantucket, some of the most hottest real estate. I believe I think we had like a $28 million house sale just recently by the harbor on Nantucket. So the islands, especially, I know that Brooke Moore, the chair select person for Nantucket, just talked about how they've lost municipal workers because of the housing issues across, especially the islands. You're from Martha's Vineyard, so I'm sure you've seen similar things being within Tisbury as well.
Well, the
So,
running joke is there's nothing affordable about affordable housing.
oh yeah, I mean, please elaborate more. Do you think that there's not enough state investment? Do you think we need to have more policies for that missing middle? Like, how do you think we failed
No,
over the course of
no,
the?
I think too much. These houses are being designed not for people who want to stay here and own land and pass their heritage to the next generation. The houses are being designed so that, I mean, one of the biggest industries are but want to say restaurants and landscaping, right? These are service industries. These housing uh, these housing packages are being created so like they don't want you to make too much money. Like that you're encouraged to not make over a certain amount of money. We need housing for, as you just workers. But as a human, that's not what I mean. You have to work, but that's not what we're really aspiring. We're not aspiring to work to pay taxes to buy weapons to kill people in other countries so that they can come here and cause a housing crisis. It's insane. We we want to we want to think about what I mean, people need to start thinking about what they really want, not what we're being spoon fed to want, right? Um, and nobody wants to live. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, but nobody wants to live in these housing facilities. And the truth is, they're being they're being offered in a way that encourages people to break the rules immediately. You got a 4 bedroom affordable house. Like it doesn't take long before there's like 4 families living in those bedrooms. And I got friends that live in them. You got to do what you got to do. But if we're going to break the rules, just let's allow people who own the land to rezone, like build their own stuff and have their own creative ability for the neighborhood. That it's not like there's a joke like a wash ashore, right? I mean,
Uh,
maybe you moved here 10 years ago. Who cares? But like, or maybe your great grandparents are from here. Maybe you're Wampanoag and you're really from here, right? Um, but the human spirit endeavors for more than just affordable housing, which is really being created. There's like a ceiling, there's a glass ceiling on how much you're allowed to succeed before they kick you out of this place. Like that's how I look at it. So
uh-huh.
I don't just everybody knows what the problems are, I think, but I have alternate solution to this problem as well. And I don't know if you want to get into this.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, hey, why not? Let's dive in. A natural segue. I'm all about. Yeah, let's hear a little bit more
Little,
about some of your plans if you were to win the
little
seat.
segue. Yeah. All right, so there's agricultural tax. I was a farmer on the vineyard for almost a decade. I had I want to say 50 goats, 50 pigs, 30 chickens. Like that's a lot of livestock for a small island. I wasn't the biggest farmer, but I was yeah, I had 3.5 acres, a little bit of family land. I was not legally considered a farmer that qualified for agricultural tax 61A. And here's what this means. Generations ago, this law was put into effect at a time when like a farm was 40 acres and a mule, or that everyone thought of that, right? And in order to include everybody to be able to be taxed as a farmer, they said, well, let's make it 8 acres. If you have 8 acres, you can qualify for this tax. But it wasn't to exclude, like today, everyone's excluded. But when it was put into place, it was to include, like nobody had less than 8 acres, right? And now, um, farming technology has drastically improved the crop the value per acre. You can grow a lot more on a lot less. And I'm not talking about with chemicals. I'm talking about with no-till, rotational grazing and no-till garden, just organic farming. On an acre, you can make a very good living. But you won't be a farmer in the eyes of the tax, which is meant to create uh, a circumstance for the cottage industry to thrive, right? So I want to bring that tax down to include everyone with an acre if you want to actually be a farmer, right? You have to be producing a certain economic output on that land, and that can stay the same as that's still reasonable, but the acreage is no longer reasonable. Like I don't even know, I might don't know two people with more than 8 acres, and I know there's some big farms which aren't even big for the, there's some nice organic farms that qualify, but most people do not qualify. And the difference is, so my neighbor qualifies for this. We share a fence, so same neighborhood. He grows corn. He pays $6 an acre in tax because he qualifies for this tax. My 3.5 acres, the family spot, that's like $13,000 a year, right? So over 10 years of farming, and it's funny, there's nothing sustainable about sustainable agriculture. Like everything is being centralized in this country and the world. And that's globalism, right? That's we're racing to the bottom here. But at a time where we're talking about green energy and like the people talking about it don't know, they're colorblind. Like they don't even know what the color green looks like. They're flying around spending millions of dollars in private jet fuel. I saw Bill Gates talk about it. He said, I spent $15 million this year on what do you call it? Sustainable jet fuel. Like, what the hell is sustain? 15 million. How many miles do you put on your private jet to spend $15 million in fuel, right? And these are the guys that are going to the World Economic Forum and talking about how we're going to save the planet. And they're kind of pushing it. They own both our one part. I'm gonna call it a one party system, right? They own those guys, and we're being sold a bill of lies. Like every solution they have is it doesn't talk about personal responsibility and like the fact that most crops in America, the number one crop in this country is yard grass. Why? Because they can sell Roundup because that kills the weeds, which like the weeds are actually dandelions. That's an incredibly powerful indigenous heart medicine. I shouldn't say indigenous, but it just it's we're being sold this idea of what we should do with our land based on advertising or marketing campaign that's selling Roundup, pushing these toxic glyphosate chemicals into the groundwater, poisoning the wells, leaching off into all these fields, right? And they're bringing up Title V and sewage, but they're not talking about like glyphosate, right? I don't care. I don't care if you never use the restroom on your property. If you're spraying with glyphosate the whole time, you're going to have some sort of effect on the oysters, right? So where was I?
Well, I actually, so unfortunately, just because when we have so much time, speaking of like climate change and some of the other things that have been impacted by potentially the industries that we have grown to become used to for Cape Codders, but also just America at large. We have been seeing people pushing more towards green energy, and specifically, especially as a Martha's Vineyard person, I really wanted to get your opinion about the offshore wind and some of the other developments there. People have been concerned about turbines, being able to see them. People are worried about like, hey, will they damage the ecosystem or impact the local endangered whale populations? But then there are some people saying like, well, we need green energy. Like we cannot continue to work off of fossil fuels. Like this is the best option. That has been something that has divided some of the other candidates, offshore wind specifically, but how to implement green energy in general. So I did want to hear more about what your opinions are on offshore wind and whether or not you feel the state is handling this transition towards green energy in the most effective, responsible way. Can you elaborate more about what you think for us?
Yeah, well, regarding wind, I have two sort of converging thought processes. One is wind energy, it's not new, but it's certainly not capped out on max potential. So we need to be developing projects so that we can study them and increase the efficiency of wind. But there's also some I think realistic concerns with allowing, it's sold as a community project, but I haven't seen a check for that. This is like a nonprofit company, which is a private, call it what you want, but like people are making money on it and it's not the community. Now I kind of like seeing what's out there now, but I'd be concerned just giving carte blanche to a company that's just going to basically, I mean, anytime any company gets in trouble, they're like, well, we had to protect our bottom line, right? So I don't want to see that expand. Like all they had to do was not mess up the first year, but there was a catastrophe out there, and that I think they overplayed how bad it was. Like one of the blades fell off, and that's the equivalent. Everybody I know has a fiberglass ship sitting in their yard, a boat sitting in their yard, and all those people were complaining about the fiberglass on the beach, you know. So yeah, it was messy, but it was overblown, I think. So it's already done. So I'm not trying to take away what's there, but I think it's easy to watch one of these projects just turn into a never-ending boondoggle of maintenance. Oh, we need more money from the state to repair this. It's like, 2 out of 3 windmills aren't even spinning. And how long? So I don't want to see that go on. And until we get that under control, I would not, I didn't raise any money from these guys. I don't have a problem with them. I don't really want to see them expand, right? At the moment, right? I want to see the efficiency increase.
Hmm.
But as far as green energy goes, this 61A tax incentive, there's nothing greener than growing your own food. They say for every liter bottle of water, you fill that halfway, and that's the amount of gasoline it took to ship that bottle, right? So think about all our lettuce and all of our produce and tomato, like they're coming from so far away. And there's plenty of stuff being grown locally, but it's hard to afford a lot of it. Now, if we incentivize people through real estate taxes, in a sense, these taxes were already made for us. They just don't apply to it's 2024. Like we just need to update them. More local food means more affordable food, means less poison in the food, which means a healthier population. More money staying in the community because all the produce we ship in, we're exporting money to import food. So I want to see that end up in an industry that is as green. There's nothing greener than local food production. So we can stop having these technology sectors. The green sector and technology is very important, but it doesn't compare to the importance of sustainable agriculture, which we don't have to wait for other people to do it for us. And I'm not trying to say I envision a world where everyone's forced back to agriculture. Just incentivize people who are already inclined to do this with tax. I don't even want to call them loopholes. These taxes were designed to encourage this type of industry, local industry, and they're just outdated. So vote for me, don't vote for me. I'm the independent, but we need to start talking about 61A agricultural tax laws.
All right. Now we're about coming up on time, but I wanted to kind of ask a little bit more about like you. So we have Julian Sear. He is the Democrat incumbent for this seat. We have Chris Lauzon. He's the Republican challenger. You're independent. What do you feel sets you apart from your opponents? And is there any specific messaging that you feel you want to clarify or respond to? Just kind of like why should someone vote for you compared to some of the other candidates that are available for this position? Essentially, what other topics are important to your campaign that you wanted to highlight while we're still here?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I met both those gentlemen and I respect what they're doing. But, and I respect that it seems to get into politics, you have to change it from the inside. That seems to be a very popular theory. Um,
Hmm.
but they are they're allowing themselves to be represented by a party which is pretending to be two parties. They're both taking money from the same corporations, and they have been in charge. The Democrats and Republicans have been in charge of the downfall of America. They have overseen this, and they like to switch now on a state level, maybe not so much, but the more energy we put into voting these candidates in, even if it's on a local level, is more energy we're giving to a power structure which is systematically against the people, right? So we have to vote independent, and unfortunately, there's not always an independent even on the ballot, right? So one of the things I could do as a state senator would have the power to do is to become governor of Massachusetts or run for U.S. Senate. You need 10,000 signatures just to get on the ballot. If you don't have, like, all the people doing that, they don't really need to get a single signature themselves. They pay for 10,000 signatures to get done for them, to get signed for them. An independent would need to either pay for that, or like it was like I need to get 200 signatures a month for the next 6 years if I wanted to run for governor, right? So we need to start lobbying the state Senate to reduce the signatures required. Now, Tennessee, you want to run for governor or senator in Tennessee, you need 25 signatures, and that's regulated by the state Senate. So one message I would like to get out is we need to reduce, if we want to change the world we're living in, we need to get rid of the Democrats and Republicans. And to do that, these seem like global issues, but on a state level, we need to pressure our senators to lower the intro requirements of the signatures needed to get on the ballot. It's pretty simple, but they're gatekeeping, in my opinion. So.
All right, Joe. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. It has been a pleasure. Is there anything else you want to highlight for our listeners while I still have you? Things like just last minute comments, or also where people can find more about you if they're interested in your campaign.
I almost forgot. Thank you, Grady. Very low budget campaign. You can email me if you want to help out. Farmer Joe MV. That's M as in Martha's, V as in Vineyard. So farmerjoemv@gmail.com. I also have an Instagram, Farmer Joe MV. And get in touch if you want to reach out and help out in any volunteer time, or hey, a little bit of money wouldn't kill me.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Joe. It has been a pleasure to have these conversations with you. And yeah, good luck in the race, similar with all the rest of the candidates. But thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you, Grady. It's been a pleasure.
I'm Grady Collane in the CapeCod.com News Center, and thank you for listening.